everyone, my name is Melissa Frey, author, editor, and lover of stories, also a grammar nerd, but you knew that. Today we're going to be talking about show versus tell. Basically how you can show the reader what's happening instead of telling them. I will be going over a few things, a few tips, things to help you along that journey in writing the best book possible. Also why you should show instead of tell, the reasons behind it, and then I'll give a few examples. So if you're ready, we'll get going. So the first thing I want to talk about is where I heard about this concept. When I first started writing my book, and yes, this was back in 2008, I was a terrible writer. Probably wasn't as terrible as I thought, but it could definitely use some work. But I mean, I just started writing, brand new author, didn't have a clue what I was doing. I never went to school for English. I didn't know how to write a story. I didn't know how to tell a story. So I basically was just kind of fumbling my way through it, seeing what came out. Wasn't great. It wasn't horrible. It was kind of bare bones, something to work with, but it wasn't great. So then I read this book. It's like the angels, you know, cue the angels, heaven's opening. Okay, so I read this book. It's amazing. Here it is. Self-editing for fiction writers. If you can see it, isn't it beautiful? Beautiful, well worn, because I've read it a lot. But if you haven't read this book or heard of it, now you've heard of it, now go read it because it's amazing. If you want to know anything about the writing craft, highly recommend it. It is by Rennie Brown and Dave King. I hope I'm pronouncing those names right. Self-editing for fiction writers. It's amazing, honestly. So this is where I first heard of this concept. It was called Show and Tell, their very first chapter. And just, if you get this book and read just the first chapter, I mean, it's worth any amount of money you spend in this book. So, okay, this book, awesome. Go buy it. I will put the link below. Okay, so let's get into the showing versus telling. How do you do that? What does it look like? What even is telling? What does it even mean? We'll get there. So let's start with something that we probably all know and probably all love because we're writers, and it's called adverbs. Yeah, adverbs. I'm pretty sure Stephen King said something about take out all the adverbs in your story and it'll be better or something. Wow, really messing up that quote. But the concept still stands. Now, I don't agree. You don't need any adverbs in your entire story. Stick with me here. Sometimes they need to actually describe the pace of an action. So if I'm describing that someone moved across the room slowly, yes, slowly is an adverb. Adverbs you can usually tell by an ly at the end of them. Not always, but usually. Another adverb. So if I'm describing someone moving across the room slowly, that actually describes the pace and how someone is moving. If I tell them they're moving across the room nonchalantly, that's more telling them how they're feeling. You're telling the reader that they're feeling nonchalant or they're acting nonchalant. Well, why don't you just tell them they're doing something that's nonchalant, right? So it really gets down to what I called action phrases in my last video, and I was told it's called action beats. That's the official writerly term. So we're going to talk about that. I'm still going to call them action phrases because, you know, whatever. Action phrases or action beats are basically the point in the dialogue where it's not only the dialogue, but a lot of times you see it in the dialogue where the person whose point of view you're writing from is describing what they see and the actions that are being taken. And also a little bit about what they feel, but they're doing it in such a way that they're describing the actual feeling, like butterflies in my stomach or nausea or a headache or something like that, instead of saying, oh, I was so nervous. Because if you tell somebody that you're nervous, that can mean a whole lot of things. And it's also something that somebody glazes right over. So instead of saying, I was nervous, you say, I got butterflies. I already covered this in my last video. There's a lot of different ways to say nervous, but it's more showing what is actually happening. And sometimes it feels a little separate from, it feels like there's too much space between the reader and the characters. Sometimes you're saying, oh yeah, well, I'm describing that this character walked across the room. Or you could say sauntered across the room. Now that's more descriptive, right? And you can kind of understand what sauntered means. It's not just walking, because walking could be anything. You could be walking quickly, which is an adverb, but in my opinion, because it's a pace thing, walking quickly is very descriptive, and it can be showing, it can be considered showing. But the point is, when you're using the action phrases correctly and you're having the character, whoever it is, whether it's first or third person, describe the actions that they're seeing and the feelings that they're feeling in such a way that it's the physical manifestation of those feelings, you're actually going to engage the reader. Now again, I talked about some of this in my second video, the previous video to this one, but I really wanted to cover it a little bit more in depth because showing and versus telling is so incredibly powerful that if you can do it right and you can really pick those things apart in your own writing and in your own book, you really can make a stronger manuscript, a stronger story, and really engage the reader. Let's move on to the next thing. Why do we show versus tell? Well, today, in 2019, the world is very visual. If you haven't noticed, why are all of us staring at our phones? Myself included. But most of what we do is very visual. We watch videos on YouTube, for example. We have a lot of pictures on Instagram. We have memes that we share with each other over text or in a chat. So there are a lot of different visual things that people are engaged with almost constantly throughout the day. TV ads you see on Facebook. I mean, really anything that can engage someone generally has a picture associated. Now, let me back up because we are writers and we want our words to engage the reader. Okay, but this is the great part. This is why showing versus telling is so powerful, because when you use the words in such a way to paint a vibrant picture of what's actually going on, the reader taps into that visual part of their brain, the one that's being engaged all the time. They can tap into that and really connect with your book. That's entirely the reason we wrote the story. You, as a writer, your job is to get the reader to engage with the story, and to do that is to give them a visual representation of what's happening. Using words, of course. Okay, so let's walk through a couple of examples. Say your character, we're gonna call him James. No reason, I'm just first name that popped in my head. James walks into a bar. Sounds like a bad joke starting, right? Wow, I should have had him walk into, I don't know, a saloon, because, okay, so we'll start there. Just me talking randomly. If James walks into a bar, you don't know what the bar looks like. You know it probably serves alcohol, because most bars usually do, but you don't know what kind of bar it is. There's a lot of different ones out there. It could be a club, but the writer just called it a bar. Be something else. But if you say James walked into a saloon, now where is he? Okay, so you've got a couple of options, but most likely he's going to be in the Wild West back in the day. So right there, with just that one word switch, you know exactly where he is. Now, of course, you're not always going to have your characters in a saloon. It might not fit your story. Using a more descriptive word really gives it more meaning and a depth of meaning, and makes it a richer experience for the reader. So if someone is excited, how does that manifest? Physically or visually. So if you're talking about the person that you're writing the story from, the point of view, that character, the main character or whatever point of view you're talking from, how would they express excitement? How would they feel it within them? So when you're writing from that point of view, they say, the butterflies in your stomach actually works, so that could work. That's one of my favorites, obviously, because I keep talking about it. But it's a very familiar feeling that people can connect with. Excited could also mean their heart started racing. Excited could mean they started jumping up and down, or feeling like they wanted to jump up and down, or feeling like they're crawling out of their skin. That could mean a few different things. The reader wants to engage and wants to have to figure out a little bit. They want to have to think. I know you probably think that readers don't want to think. They just want to read a nice story and get lost in it. Yes, exactly. That's exactly the point. The reader actually, they'll go back to a time when they felt like that and connect to that. It gives them a puzzle, not too hard. Don't make them work too hard for it. So another example would be the car was driving fast. Let's pick that apart a little bit. You could say the tan station wagon was driving fast. I don't know, nothing against station wagons, but to me, if it's driving really fast, I'm a little concerned. As opposed to if I said the sleek black muscle car was driving fast. Well, that you expect, because that's kind of the whole point of those cars, is to go fast. So you can see how like the description helps bring it in, and it helps you show what's instead of tell, right? Okay. So, but you can say instead of, you can say that they were driving really fast, or it was moving really fast, because the car doesn't technically drive, the driver does. Anyway, you can say that it's moving very fast, or you could say it was moving at the speed of sound. And of course that would be a figurative thing, but we're okay with hyperbole. We're writers, right? So, but there's so many different ways you could say it. You could say, instead of was moving really fast, which is still pretty descriptive, you could say the car was speeding down the highway. That gives it a little bit of a location. Or you could say the car's tires screeched as it drove out of the parking lot. And that actually gives them something audibly to connect to, and they think about the tire screeching, and then they figure out what that actually means. They know that the car is moving really fast. They have to for the tires to screech, right? Because we pretty much have all heard that. So it's just a very interesting way to think about it. Showing the reader what is happening instead of telling them what is happening is the best way to get your reader to connect with the book, to engage with your story, and to keep reading, which that's kind of why we wrote it. If you would like to follow me on Instagram, I would love it. I post a lot of pictures over there, keep up to date on my writing process, and give all kinds of news and fun tips and just pictures that I like, sometimes aesthetic pictures of my book. So my Instagram handle is Melissa Frey Author. Also, my Twitter is Melissa Frey Auth, because I ran out of characters. But that's fine. It's totally cool. And then I'm Melissa Frey Author on Facebook as well. So feel free to follow me. I've got the links down below so you can connect with me there. I want to hear if any of this concept I'm talking about connect with you. If there's something that you've just been wondering about in your head, I'm just like, hey, you know what? I would really like to see somebody else's take on that. Great, I would love to know. You can either leave in the comments below or send me a DM. Those are fine too. I love to get DMs with people and just connect that way. So I think that's pretty much sums up showing versus telling. I hope you learned a lot. I had a lot of fun making it. Anyway, my name is Melissa Frey, author, editor, lover of stories, and a grammar nerd. And you can catch me next Friday right here on this channel. Bye!